Last month, we got word that further development and updates for StarCraft 2 will be coming to an end. The game will be entering what's commonly referred to as maintenance mode, receiving occasional balance fixes, but beyond that, basically staying the same. This announcement came just a few short months after the 10-year anniversary, and for me, this feels like the end of an era. StarCraft 2 was a game that took over the better part of 2 whole years of my life, and in the process, got me into competitive gaming, interested in the esports scene, and launched the YouTube career that I'm still doing to this day. It's impossible for me to overstate the impact this had on my life, and even though it's been many years since I've played, it still holds a very special place in my heart. So StarCraft 2 is coming to an end, at least in the sense that it won't be changing or likely growing ever again, but I do look back fondly on all the things StarCraft 2 did and meant for me personally. For starters, this was probably the first game where I truly tried hard to play competitively. Sure, I can look back to when I was a kid with late nights spent playing GoldenEye, fragging in Halo 1 and 2, and yeah, things got pretty sweaty during those WoW arena days, but the sheer amount of time and effort I put into getting better at StarCraft 2 put everything before it to shame. Like, I actually cared about improving and ranking up, as evidenced by this gem of a video here.
With good solid mechanics, with good understanding of how the game works and good strategies, knowing how to not so much counter, but knowing how to respond to your opponent and whatever they do. Anyone can really do this.
Little did I know at the time, this was a fluke. I wasn't that good, but I cared about competitive play and I enjoyed the process of trying to get better. This was a daily obsession, fueled by spending countless hours on YouTube, the official forums, and Team Liquid for all the information and advice I could find. Build orders, worker and army counts, push and expansion timings, micro and macro tips, and trying to find answers to questions like, how do I get my APM over 9,000? Why do my fingers hurt? And why is Terran such a bullshit race? There was just so much about this game to learn, and I tried to absorb as much as I could. Not to give the impression that I was at any point anywhere near as good as pro players. In fact, I probably wouldn't survive a well-timed split push from even amateur players, but it didn't really matter. Seeing myself improve with time and practice was a reward enough. And the game's ranked play let me put my skills to the test. In fact, to this day, I really feel like competitive StarCraft 2 was some of the most frustrating, stressful, and simultaneously satisfying and rewarding gaming experiences I've ever had. The thing about competitive ranked 1v1 in this game is there is no excuses for losing. It's just you, your opponent, and the map. The player with the best mechanics, strategy, and ability to adapt is going to win. And if you do lose, it's always a learning opportunity. There's going to be something somewhere that you could have done better. The game is just brutally punishing of any mistakes while also rewarding any well thought out and executed play. And I think that's exactly what makes this game so great and what made me enjoy it so very much. StarCraft is just so complex with so many elements to juggle. There's always something that you can improve on. And thanks to the replay system, I personally spent countless hours rewatching my mistakes, which was a goldmine for learning where my flaws were, along with delivering a steady dose of depression. Comparing my own play to that of pro players, seeing where I lacked, what I could do better, and having an exact roadmap as to how, but still not actually ever really executing because, you know, I'm just not that good. And then there's the esports scene. While I could never hope to grace the stage myself, damned if I did not love the hype and excitement that surrounded this game. It wasn't just watching intense matches between the highest caliber players in the world, but just all of the pizzazz that surrounded it. Light shows, roaring crowds, play-by-play commentary with people getting hyped out of their minds.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Archons, where's his Archons? He needs to get those in there. He gunned down the Archons before it was time. And the Void Rays come out. And Archon goes in. Another Archon goes in. Get in there. Oh my God, what are we seeing? This is madness.
Oh my God,
is he actually going to kill this army? Oh, the PCs are all going down. I can't believe what I just saw.
The rivalries between the players, the smack talk, the thrill of victory and the crush of defeat. All of these stories created in every match and over time. When I wasn't playing or reading about StarCraft, the esports scene was there in all of its thrill and drama to further fuel my love of the game. Hundreds of hours spent watching the best players in the world slug it out, and all along the way, there were the voices of prominent casters. Artosis and Tasteless, Husky and HD, and the man who first inspired me to make YouTube videos, Total Biscuit. 2010 and 11 were filled with the sounds of Terran, Protoss, and Zerg armies colliding, and these legends calling the action every step of the way.
Oh, she's just gonna go for it.
Yep, and these are actually not fast banelings, which is interesting. Will TLO be able to deal with this? Will he be able to pop them before they actually hit that minimal line? And oh, that was nasty. That's a good 2/3 of the minimal line devastated, and he catches the tanks out of position as well. So TLO's economy just took a huge hit.
StarCraft 2 wasn't just my first foray into the world of esports. To this day, it's still the one that I watched and cared about the most. For as much as I've played other games with esports scenes, like Hearthstone, Overwatch, and countless FPS and Battle Royale games, none of their pro scenes grabbed my attention quite like StarCraft 2. The game was just so watchable, with so many highs and lows, and a clear display of skill. For me, there's really been nothing quite like it since. But forget about how much I loved playing and watching StarCraft. I think likely the biggest impact the game had on me was the community. Sure, like any competitive game, there was a fair share of toxicity, a lot of it revolving around which race you choose to play. Terran was considered the face roll race, Zerg was for all of those big brain players, and Protoss existed. Anytime you won a game, there was a not insignificant chance that your opponent may tell you why your race is overpowered or your build was shit and you got lucky. But I think what stood out to me the most were all of the avenues in the community for growth, improvement, and support. If you wanted to learn how to get better at the game, there was no short supply of content and people out there who were willing to help. The time I spent engaging on forums, Team Liquid, YouTube, and attending events like BlizzCon, I met and built relationships with too many great people to count. Maybe my glasses are a shade of rose here, but overall, I felt like engaging with the StarCraft community was overwhelmingly positive in most of the places I looked. And then there's my YouTube channel. This thing right here. It all started back in 2010 with me making videos for StarCraft 2, strategy guides where I would walk people through the basics of builds and popular tactics. Lots of cheese, admittedly. Things like the 6-pool, Bunker Reaper, and Cannon Rush, the Baneling Bust and Proxy Racks, little tricks to help you get easy wins, which worked like a charm until you reached a rank where your opponents actually knew what they were doing, and then you had to know some ways to actually play the game. And I think that's when I started to cover a lot more broad, generally useful advice, how to work on your micro and macro, different expansion and push timings, and how to adapt based on what your opponent was doing. Basically, the videos I made were a way of reinforcing the things that I was learning myself. I didn't invent new strategies or tactics. I just watched the pros, tried to figure out what they were doing and why, and then made videos sharing what I had learned, and people seemed to like it. My love for the game that I was spending all my time with and a desire to personally improve are what grew my channel in the early days. For all of that and the reasons I mentioned earlier, this was an incredibly exciting time in my life. I had this game that I loved, wanted to watch, play, and improve in daily, and then the hype of the esports scene, meeting new people and making friends in the community, and the beginning of this YouTube channel. I'm just so grateful and thankful to StarCraft, not only for the entertainment over the years, but the opportunities and future it laid the foundation for. And even though it's been a long time since I played, in some ways it never left me. The roots still in the career I find myself doing to this day. The game bumped into my life and put me on a path I may otherwise have never found, and introduced me to people I may have otherwise never met. So that is a lot of the ways that StarCraft, I guess, impacted me and what the game and that whole experience once meant to me. And it's just a bittersweet chapter to know that it's coming to an end, even if I've been out of the loop for so very long. So what is the future of StarCraft 2? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, the game is going to be going into maintenance mode. So this means there's not going to be any additional for purchase content like those commanders and war chests that they've been doing. And they will still be doing season roles and any necessary balance fixes. And the StarCraft 2 esports scene will continue through things like ESL Gaming and the GSL. But I guess what's biggest in this announcement that they made was they said that this frees them up for what's next in the StarCraft universe. But what is the future of StarCraft going to be? Are we going to see StarCraft 3, another RTS? I think that's a little hard to put any bets on given how the RTS genre is doing in general. Now, StarCraft still has a fairly steady, consistent fan base, but it isn't exactly a game that's growing. And in fact, I would say that in general, the RTS genre is fairly stagnant. We've got fan bases around StarCraft, StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, and various Age of Empire games, but you don't really hear a lot of new excitement and growth in the genre. So I don't know if we're going to see a StarCraft 3 anytime soon. Then we have the ever elusive StarCraft Ghost, which has been trying to release for like 30 some odd years. It just never seems to make its way out the door. Maybe they take another crack at that. Or maybe they bring StarCraft into a brand new genre. Personally, I think there's a lot of opportunities with FPS take on StarCraft, maybe even a card game take on StarCraft like they did with Hearthstone for Warcraft. Hell, you know me, I would love an MMO. I think there's so much, but there's literally a universe worth of potential for a StarCraft MMO. You could have 3 faction systems, classes based off the different units in the game. There's so much lore and history and storytelling and settings, and just there's damn, it could be really good. A StarCraft MMO could be really good, but I don't know if Blizzard's gonna take that step. In fact, I think, unfortunately, one of the more probable things for the next iteration of StarCraft might be a mobile game. Honestly, before we get it pains my heart to say it, but there's a good chance the next StarCraft thing will be a mobile game. Please, God, Blizzard, anything but that. StarCraft 2 is a game that I absolutely loved. The game itself, its community, and just everything that surrounded it. And I'm really sad to see it winding down, even though I have not been in touch with this game for 8 or 9 some odd years at this point. I think if nothing else, I'm interested to see what's on the horizon for Blizzard and for StarCraft. And I think regardless of what does come next, I'll be happy to see where StarCraft goes in the future. And if nothing else, I'm just so thrilled that StarCraft was a part of my life and such a big part of my life. Freaking A, StarCraft, you were a hell of a game. 2010 and 11 were some pretty amazing years. So, you know, despite where Blizzard is now, despite where Blizzard goes and StarCraft goes in the future, thank you for the memories that were StarCraft 2. I'll see you guys later.